We're live.
Excellent. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. The first order of business is going to be that I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of last month's meeting. It was July 22nd. Minutes have been distributed, and I think everybody's got a chance to look at them. So I'll ask if I have a second.
Second.
Okay. And we will start with you, Clem.
Aye.
Time's not there.
Okay. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, approved. Thank you. So we only have one case before us tonight, which is Mercy College. So do we have anybody on that? I thought.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everyone doing this evening?
Evening.
Great,
Michelle?
thank you.
Shall I begin, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Seth Mandelbaum. I'm a partner with the law firm of McCullough, Goldberger, and Stout, and I'm pleased to be here on behalf of Mercy University, who have been our client for about 15 years now. We're here before you this evening regarding a proposed field house project that you're going to hear about in a moment. With me is Tom Simmons, who is Mercy University's Vice President for Operations and Facilities, and Chris Tramatola, who is the project architect, principal with Alloy Design Studio. And we're here after being in front of the planning board for the last 3 months on this project. And the planning board reviewed it. We presented an alternative that we'll explain in a few minutes. And that is the plan that is before you this evening. It does require 4 area variances as identified in the denial letter from Ed Marin. And we'll take you through those in a moment. Tom has been in constant communication with APOA and the neighbors on that side of the campus. And the current location of the proposed field house is actually a direct result of those conversations and input from the surrounding neighborhood. And they actually submitted, the president of APOA submitted an email to the planning board supporting the current location. As you know, for area variances under section 7-712B of New York State Village Law, your role here is to balance the benefit to the applicant versus any detriment on the neighborhood and look at the 5 factors enumerated in New York State law. And as we set forth in detail in our memo in support and the affidavit from Mr. Simmons and the supporting materials from Chris Tramatola, we believe we clear those hurdles and on balance, the benefit clearly exceeds any nominal detriment to the neighborhood. So with that, Chris, if you could put up the slides. We have a brief slide presentation, and you'll hear from Tom and Chris, if that's okay, which will give a little more information and some imagery that we believe demonstrates what I just spoke about a moment ago. So if we could go to the next slide, please, Chris, and I will hand it over to Tom Simmons.
Well, good evening. So I'll give you a little background. I think you all know Mercy University is split between Dobbs Ferry and the Irvington municipalities. And we've been thinking about the need for this field house basically back since about 2016. As you're probably aware, Mercy is a Division II ECC. We have 10 athletic teams. And back in 2016, we have 2 gymnasiums on the campus, one in Victory Hall, which was built in '60, that we purchased in 2012, and one in Main Hall, which was one of the 2 founding buildings from 1959. Both of them had small multi-use gymnasiums. When you did a layup, you would bounce into the wall almost. I think you've all been in the 1960s older gyms that were used for a lot of different things. And then we had one small bubble at the time that was mostly a rental bubble that had been up there for a lot of years. It was about a quart and a half, and we had taken that offline because of the condition of it. So in 2017, we decided through a project to put an addition on the Victory Hall gym and to make that regulation size of what it would need to be. And at the same time, we took the gymnasium in Main Hall, split the floor, and made that into a health professions wing when we expanded our nursing and different health professions programs at that time. How we made up for the loss of one of the two places was doing some rentals at House of Sports in different areas. But post the pandemic, when we had a lot of in-campus activity coming back, we started exploring the idea of adding another facility or a bubble on the campus. And the thing we looked at was, you can see on the Irvington side, the three tennis courts that existed on that side of the court. So we originally thought about putting a bubble over those three areas, and it would work well. You know, bubbles have their limitations with investment as a capital asset, and you know, they aren't the most attractive piece. I've had a pretty good working relationship with APOA, as Seth had talked to, and had talked to Mai and some folks about that. And we decided after my consultations with our board, my board, that it was probably a better investment for us to actually build a building, a multi-use field house that had the equivalent size of three courts and an open floor multi-use piece that could do a lot of different things for us. And we then thought about three different locations for that building, one being over those tennis courts that I just talked to you about. One was maybe placing it where the softball field currently was to connect our quad, and maybe putting the softball field over on the Irvington side. And the third one was down by the parking area, down by the riverfront. And through kind of our in-house kind of reviews, we decided that we thought the area of the tennis courts would link the connection the best. Through our conversations with the Village of Irvington's Planning Board and APOA, you know, there was three concerns with that location. One was the massing of the building in that location and what it meant to the neighborhood, or different things in terms of size and scale. A second one was the views that some had shared that they thought were being blocked of the riverfront from that area. You know, the planning board and ourselves weren't sure if those views actually exist. You know, we had a lot of conversations about those. And the third one was the proximity to the Eagle's Nest that's on one of the adjacent side streets. So as we talked about that, and I met with some of the neighborhood and the planning board folks, you know, everyone felt like, including Mercy, that the changing of the softball field wasn't a good solution. But the riverfront location had some real benefits. And as myself and I designers worked on that, we actually came around and thought that would be the better location for a couple reasons. One, how it could connect to that back area and kind of extend the campus a little bit. And it's not that big of an area, better use of it. The views, the kind of the breathtaking views that aren't really capitalized very well. And it's a prime location. It's kind of a shame to have a lot of parking right in a prime location with that. But in order for us to do that, we would have to relocate some of that parking that's there, because as you're probably aware, I only have so much parking, and we need those 1,000 spaces we had. So we came up with this concept where we would put the building there and place the parking that was lost with the building placement up where the tennis courts were, along with two kind of multi-use outdoor courts and a pedestrian connector across the large parking lots. You know, one of our overall goals is to reduce the kind of football field feel of this big, enormous parking lot. And as we've evolved and we're rebuilding the campus and a lot of themes, we try to think about those in a more sustainable kind of environmental solution. So with some of that background, that's how we got to this theme. We believe that this aligns with our master plan themes that I've shared regularly with the Village of Irvington leadership and the planning board. We think we've been a good partner with your side of the campus. I think the sustainable gardens that we've built up on the side have been fitting with the aesthetic and pieces that we've tried to do. And you will see on the side of the parking area that I had talked to you about that was added up here, we had committed to extending that informal garden walkways and preserve that kind of green open area. So that's my brief background. If I can help any more with any background, you let me know. We'll move on to Chris getting into details of the building.
Thanks, Tom.
Good evening. My name is Chris Tremitola. I'm the architect and landscape architect on the project. And I'll run through in a little bit more detail exactly what is being proposed here and the variances involved. So if I hop to the next slide, I'll go from the least complex to the most complex of the variances. The first being the request that the parking spaces here that are being proposed are the standard 9-foot wide by 18-foot deep with a 24-foot aisle. This is the standard New York DOT state regulation for sizing. The Irvington code has a larger 10 by 20 parking space. If we were to adopt that in the campus, a large amount of parking would be lost. And the vast majority, all of the parking spaces at the moment on the campus are that same 9-foot by 18-foot deep parking stalls. So that's the first one to note. The second is a rear yard setback variance. 75 feet is required. We have 55 feet from the back of the building to this, what I initially thought was actually an easement, but it is actually a property line. MTA owns down here for the train tracks, and then Mercy owns beyond that again under the water, which is why I thought that was an easement. This from the corner here to the building is 55 feet and 2 inches. So we would need a variance for that distance, although there's no impact visually for any neighbor. The third is the coverage. So in addition to the building, a series of pedestrian paths and walkways, including the walkways that now meander through the campus, have been added. And as Irving walkways, parking spaces, buildings, walls, etc., other than drive lanes, are counted as building coverage. So this takes us over the 15% allowable coverage by 3.2%. So that is the third variance. And then the fourth variance, the last one, is the building height, which as calculated by the Irvington calculation method is from lowest point of existing grade to highest point of the building. And because we have a low point of existing grade that we would be filling in on the northwest corner here, it actually adds 4 feet to that calculation. So although the building height is actually 42 feet, the calculation for this as per the Irvington code is 46. And I'll run through those, that one especially in a little bit more detail. But to go over the project, we are placing, so you can see where we're placing this here. The building, obviously the interior of the building is flat, but we have a sloped parking lot that we're placing it over, and you can see these contours that provides that 1, 2, 3, 4 feet of elevation change across it that we'd be filling in this back corner. And we're mostly obviously covering existing disturbed area. This is not new area. We're almost completely within the parking lot area. the furthest west parking lot area, and then encroach slightly into the eastern parking lot area as well. Here is at the same scale. You can see the green space, the open space that's created. The main entrance and lobby for the field house is here, and you enter in at a higher elevation, but slightly, and then you walk through the building to a stair and elevator to get down to the main space, and that main space opens up into this green. On the west side, there would be a plaza on the back that serves actually two functions. It is a plaza for pedestrians to go and enjoy the view, also provides fire truck access for the back for fire protection. Coming up on the east side of the building, beyond the green, is an amphitheater that deals with a very steep existing grade change that's here, and then comes up to a higher elevation green that comes up to Verrazano Hall. Up top by the parking, we have an existing island that is being reformed and reshaped to be a traffic calming measure. So this creates slows down traffic and creates a raised table, similar to what we've done up by the OCA, where you have to go up, even with the pedestrian paving, and then back down, and you have a little bit of a rumble under your tires that slows down the traffic, and that has a pedestrian paving type material on it throughout that zone and the zone here. We keep two athletic uses here, a basketball court and a tennis court, and then we fill in the western side here with parking equivalent to the parking that's lost from the field house project down below. We're not adding parking, we're not reducing parking. It's the exact same amount of parking spaces that we are that the campus currently has, just reformed, but as Tom mentioned, with parking with vegetative islands, not only for stormwater mitigation, but also for visual screening and to reduce heat island effect, of course.
Can I ask a question on that point?
Sure.
On the parking, so you're staying with the same number of spaces. And
Yes.
was I correct in hearing that obviously I understand you need a variance for the size of the spaces, but the spaces that you're putting in are still going to be the same size of spaces that you're currently using throughout the property already?
Correct.
Then why would Irvington, and I'm throwing this out rhetorically, but if anybody has a good answer, I'd like to hear it. Why would Irvington have a standard that is larger for parking spaces than New York DOT?
That's really a
sure.
question for your legislative body that adopted that standard.
Yeah.
The 60-foot double loaded parking bay, which is an 18-foot parking stall, 24-foot aisle, and an 18-foot parking stall, has been the state and national standard for parking. Any Home Depot, Walmart, wherever, any large parking lot that you've been in, I can almost certainly guarantee that it's based on the 60-foot double loaded parking aisle. And that has been pretty ubiquitous. It's not the first time that I've seen different parking space regulations, but generally those regulations come in when you are targeting a specific downtown area that may have somewhat tight older turning radiuses around streets and a mix of parallel parking and 90-degree parking like this, and so they opt to increase that. I have not seen that broadcast over an entire jurisdiction like this in Irvington, but not to say that it doesn't happen. I just have not seen that previously.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you.
And how many parking spots would you lose if you went with Irvington's standard rather than the DOT?
I haven't done the calculation, but simply moving from a 9-foot to a 10-foot wide, we'd be losing about 12% of the parking spaces that we're proposing, which were about 140. So we'd be losing somewhere around 18.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you clarify? Your brief says that required parking is 9.5, not 10. Are you sure that, could you state with some certainty what the actual requirement is?
I'm speaking off the top of my head, so I may have been incorrect that it was,
Yeah.
if it's 9.5 or 10.
Let me just,
I think it's 9.5.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it?
just-
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would reduce that number of
Yeah.
parking spaces lost in that delta.
yeah, in Ed's letter, it says required 9.5 wide, 20-foot deep. Proposed 9-foot wide, 18 feet deep.
Yes. My apologies.
On the word.
Okay.
I have a question about the height variance.
Yes.
Since, I mean, I went down to the location and it does dip quite considerably, so it does seem like, you know, it's certainly not gonna be particularly visible from, for instance, I guess that would be Hudson Road West or any of the other sort of adjoining areas. So my concern is a little bit more precedent because this is exceeding the height requirement by quite a bit.
Right.
So we actually have some renderings based on actual balloon tests that Chris did, which I think can speak to that. If you don't mind, if we go through the rest of the slides, I think that might inform that
Okay.
question a little bit. So Chris, maybe you can just quickly
Yep.
do the floor plans and get to the renderings.
Yes. So floor plans, just to give a sense of what this building encompasses, as Tom initially mentioned, it's a large athletic space with a support wing here that encompasses a lobby, meeting area, some flexible space, and locker rooms. On the mezzanine level, going up the stairs, some additional bathrooms, mechanical space, and a perimeter walking track above that you'd have some windows all along that west side to view the Hudson while walking the track up there. Here is the elevations. We started with the side elevations to depict this the regulation here. The lower line and the upper line are 5 feet difference. The lower line is 35 feet from the lowest existing grade, which you can just see down here. And the upper line is 35 feet from the grade that we will be bringing it to, just for reference. I know the calculation is from lowest existing grade, but I wanted to show exactly where the 35 feet lands, where it is from the proposed grade. And the same thing on the north elevation here. And so you can see the small intrusion that we're talking about here is really up this shed roof that comes up, which the height of the building is regulated by the sports that would be played within the building need certain clearances above the court area for the ball to fly in terms of tennis or setting in terms of volleyball. All of those have regulations which, with a shed roof, a long span, as we're seeing here, the depth of beam gets to be a considerable size, and that when you don't have posts between, which these sports would not allow there to be posts, intermittent posts, you have a very deep beam here, which is what drove that height. When we look to the
Just go
front,
back one, if you just go back just for 1 second. I
Yep.
mean, it's only that small little part. If you're taking the higher elevation, if you're taking the lower elevation, which I think is what the code requires,
yes,
and it's more than half the building. So just to be clear, it's not
Yes.
really just that small part, right?
it's this lower line here. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to be clear about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So here on the other elevations, again, you can see where those lines land. This here facing Verrazano Hall into the campus is a considerable amount of glazing here, along with some cowl wall at the top to light the interior spaces. and then facing out to the Hudson. Again, we have the storefront glass that leads out to the plaza. And here is, we did a balloon test. So these are helium-filled balloons, weather balloons that are set and measured at the exact locations of the four corners of the main portion of the building. So if I go back quick, we're talking about this corner here, and the back two corners here and here. We sprayed on the ground the location of the support spaces, but considering they're far below any height variance, we did not do balloon tests for those. So here are the four corners of that building. And there's it diagrammed in for where that building would sit. Here's slightly further back.
These are all interiors to the campus right now that we're showing.
Here's from the hill up above near Verrazano Hall. Here is from up near the OCA. This is also diagrammatic of showing the green space that's created. The white line here is the edge of the tennis court and parking area. So it shows that we're maintaining the green space that is existing there. And the intrusion is only a 5-foot intrusion. I don't know the exact dimension, but you can see this line is drawn in the location where that parking would end. And then this is from, we walked up and down Hudson Road to try and find any view that would be able to see the balloons while they were up. And if you can see a little dot right above the cursor at the moment, that is one of the balloons. So just over the hill, you would have a glimpse onto a sliver of the roof. So this just shows the drastic grade change that we're dealing with here on the Mercy campus, as the entire building is roughly obfuscated by the topography here. And then just a couple rendering images of what the building would actually look like. Here, the green space created out front. And that concludes the presentation.
Thanks, Chris. So sorry if I cut off the question earlier, but I thought it was important for the board to see those balloon test results and see what you could not see from the surrounding neighborhood. And OPOA saw those at the last planning board meeting, as did the board. And Tom has been very transparent with the neighborhood, and they were quite pleased with, especially compared to the original location where it was more visible because it's higher up and you have that open lawn looking in from the OCA and Hudson Road West. The building was more visible, certainly from the other location that was considered. So that was our presentation, and now certainly happy to answer any further questions at this time.
Anybody on the board have any questions?
I do. I think that parking and height was well documented, and I understand the situation. Can you just briefly just recap on the setback and the
Yes,
coverage again? Sorry if I
no problem.
Thank you.
So we have a dimension, this thicker dashed line here on the plan is a property line that separates the Mercy campus from the MTA train tracks. This is a very heavily sloped site here. And I'm not quite sure why this jogs like that, but this brings it within 55 feet to the back of the building. The rear setback for the special permit zone here is 75 feet. So this would require a variance here.
And the coverage also, Chris.
Is
The
any
cover,
part of that building 75? Do you know what I'm saying? I know the closest part is 55, but what is the rest of the building?
the rest of the building I could measure.
It should
What
be, but
About 20 feet
yeah,
further
Yeah, parts of it are
further
definitely.
east.
okay. Any other questions from anybody?
I
And
think
what was,
Chris-
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Chris coverage.
the setback is, I mean, it's not like there's a neighboring house. or
Right, it's
anything.
just the right, yeah.
So, but I.
Yeah, in fact, Mercy owns like
What's that?
12 or
I said it's
13
the
acres of
MTA.
land under the
Right,
river
right.
beyond the MTA right away, which is about 75 feet below or so, right? It's like a
Mhm.
cliff there.
And I'll add too that the planning board with the plaza on the back of it and the, how the fire trucks come through, thought that that was suggested to kind of pull it back to that distance, to have that piece there, to have the right balance off the cliff.
And I'm sorry, I think
Also, it's about the-
a board member wants some clarification on the coverage variance, right? Right, Chris?
Sure, yeah. So the coverage variance, as I mentioned, includes all paths, walkways, playing surfaces, parking spaces, and sidewalks. It does not include roadways. So many areas that are currently added to the plan to provide ADA access throughout the site, as this is a very hilly site. There's a current lack of safe passage at the moment. For instance, many of the parking lots do not have any pedestrian walkways. So what we're adding here with these walkways to get through the campus, and especially adding this portion of stabilized gravel pathway, which continues along what we have done already, which is a pervious gravel paving, but regardless does count under Irvington's code as a building. This, along with the other paths that lead all the way up to Broadway, do count there, which when added up at 5 feet wide for thousands of feet long, does have a considerable impact. And so that, along with many of the other paths, has increased our coverage. As I showed here, obviously the building is not increasing our coverage because the building is taking up parking, right? So, and then the new parking that we're placing is taking up existing tennis courts. So the majority of the increased coverage, almost all the increased coverage, has come from our pedestrian access throughout the Irvington side of campus.
Thanks, Chris.
Any other
So it's a little confusing because it falls under building coverage, but it's a very broad definition in the code.
Right. Any other questions, Rosie or anybody?
No.
I guess oddly, the one thing that kind of bothers me on this is the parking, because you're asking for 4 variances, and as you know, it is our job to give the least number of variances possible. And the height bothers me, but I think you've kind of convinced me that you need the height. I don't think the coverage is substantial. I can live with the setback. But I would like to know the difference in numbers of parking spaces that you would get by following the Irvington code or not. Because I don't think we should be giving a variance if it's not, unless we're convinced that it's really needed.
So
Well, one other
go
thing to
ahead.
consider was, I was just gonna say that lot doesn't exist now, so the other option is to make the lot a little bigger to accommodate that parking being bigger. But when we talk with others, since all the other spaces were the other size, we were encouraged to think of this. So those 2 courts and that parking area doesn't exist. So if we needed to make them, what we were trying to do was be sensitive to that line that Chris showed of where the current tennis courts were, and trying to fit like within the zone that people had asked us if we could kindly restore that green space.
Well, sure, and then also you need a bigger coverage variance, so that.
Right,
I'm
right.
sure
So
you'd like
we
to avoid
thought
as well.
we thought that was the better solution.
Yeah, I think that one thing, I agree with you, because, if there's anything that the applicant can control itself, obviously, would be the size of the parking spots. But if we were to hold them to a strict enforcement of the larger spaces,
Right.
it would effectively come to a bit of an absurd conclusion in that the new parking area would have larger spaces than all the spaces that they currently have
Right, okay.
on the property
yep.
already.
Right.
Which is
Right,
why,
right,
you know,
right,
it's said, so it's sort of, you know, they're basically sticking with the size of the parking that they already have.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many parking spaces does that give you? In total?
We've got 1,089.
1,089 with this proposal.
Well, no, on the whole, yeah, that's what we currently have. And with this, we maintain the same amount
So
of
you're
parking.
basically just maintaining
Yes.
this way. Okay,
Correct.
so that's a bit of an answer then, I guess.
Yeah.
And just to add there, the size of the parking stalls here match the existing stalls that we're taking away that are also in Irvington, right? So
Right.
it's not
They're
not like a
non-conforming.
grandfathered in, but you know,
Yeah.
Right, yeah, no. I
And they
understand.
match the ones on the Dobbs side, which has a different
Okay.
standard, which is more in line with the DOT standard, right, Chris?
yes.
Okay. Sarah, is there anybody from the community that wants to be heard?
There's nobody.
Nobody has their hands up. Okay. All right, then, I think I will make a motion to approve. I think for the reasons I just went through, parking. Again, I think it's maintaining the number of spaces you already have, so I understand that. I don't think that's a huge jump in coverage, and as you say, it's mostly walking paths, which is great. The height, it's a little high, but it doesn't impact anybody else's view, and I think structurally it sounds like you need it. And what was the other one I'm missing?
Setback.
The setback, yep. Again, the setback is not substantial, and for a lot of the building, it's within the setback. So I will make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great, and we'll start with you, Bob.
Aye.
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 I'd just like to point out that I am a member of the APOA board, and I appreciate very much all the flexibility that you brought to this process. I'm very pleased to say aye, and appreciate you for being a good neighbor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will send you a letter by the end of the week.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of the summer. What's left of
Thank
it?
you.
What's left of
You
it?
Yes.
And since that's our only case, I will think